Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh, yeah. Hello. April 5, the day after a former president was charged with 34 felonies. Sort of repetitious. They're all sort of the same. So I don't know about you, but I spent much of the day watching the circus. And by the evening, I was, explain to me. And I hope some of you actually, I really hope to hear from some of you, your reactions, assuming that some of you, like me, were glued to the media coverage. The circus, the media circus, the Trump circus is back. And there I was, a willing participant throughout, watching, watching aerial views of his SUV going down the FDR Drive. Why? Why? Because this addiction the media has toward Trump was back in full display, I think. Oh, I know they had a good excuse. I had a good excuse too. This was historic. Also a beautiful day. I could have been outside. I don't know what to say, which is why I'm hoping some of you will. I was frightened by his speech last night. Frightened. Because that speech followed a judge specifically telling him, get the exact quote, there when he was in that courtroom, Judge Merchant said to him that he was not going to impose a gag order, but he warned Trump specifically about making statements that incite violence or create civil unrest. Now, that is open to interpretation, but anybody else hearing that would not have been taken to his still bully pulpit, which, except for MSNBC, CNN, and Fox, absolutely following it to the bitter end. And then he says, after the judge tells him that, he says, this is where we are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family. His sons and Marjorie Taylor Greene putting out stories featuring the judge's daughter, her picture, saying she was a Trump hater, putting her at risk. Because all it takes is one, as we know, one Trump thug to take all of this as a sign that she should be taken out. I'm curious about what this judge is going to do. After that warning, does that and Trump defies he called the special prosecutor in the documents case, Jack Smith. And he made a strange remark, which I didn't understand. Does anybody understand? He said something about Jack Smith, if that's really his name. But what did that mean? If anybody knows. He called him a lunatic more than once. He said he was threatening people every day. He sounded literally deranged. They can't beat us at the ballot box, he said. My son was here when his speech began, and my son immediately saw something that I would have been lost on me. But it's it's absolutely true. Trump's entrance last night at Mar-a-Lago was, as my son, who is a wrestling fan, always has been since he was a kid, he just howled. He says, he's doing a wrestling entrance. Through the crowd is people around him. The pillow guy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, his idiot sons, conspicuously absent his wife. And the fact that that is exactly how a wrestler heads into a match. And Trump is a wrestling fan. Trump has been in WWE media events, matches, as I'm sure you know. And to realize that this is really where he learns the stagecraft of what he does. God help us. My thoughts are all in disarray, which I guess is, if it's not already obvious, will become obvious. I don't, as I look back on the coverage yesterday, I realize that this man still has an extraordinary amount of power. Power over media that are, after all, money-making capitalist enterprises. And I read you that disgusting but revelatory and honest quote from the former president of CBS that Trump might be bad for the nation, but he was, wow, a pot of gold for media. Because people, including me, can't take their eyes off the spectacle. Now, I suspect, though, that the show we saw last night, if you watched it, and, you know, here, by the way, MSNBC did the right thing, did not show the speech, but guess what? They lost me as a viewer because I wanted to hear what he said. So there it is, in a nutshell. Do the right thing, come in third place in the ratings. Donald Trump still has astonishing power over the Republican Party, which I am happy about because he'll destroy the party. But he's destroying so much. So much. I don't know. After being told not to incite, he says the criminal is the DA. And then he gets on the judge's daughter and wife and says he hates him. How is the judge really supposed to respond? Because Trump has politicized it. So they say that, you know, the court system operates outside this political system. In the courtroom, he's just another, right? Just another defendant. And he has no power in that courtroom. The judge has all the power. But we see now that outside of the courtroom, he still feels he's in control. And so the defiance of his performance last night, after the admonishment from the judge, suggests that he's going to push this to the point where the judge is going to have to impose a gag rule. I think. You know, I don't know about you, but generally people doing their job are not, you know, having to exhibit literally, you know, courage. The kind of courage, you know, that suggests that their lives could be in danger. But that is the case with all of these prosecutors, the judges, their families, because Trump has shown us that his brown shirts will act. Although it could be said they weren't in evidence yesterday. They weren't in evidence. There was fear that there would be a potential. There were more cops. There were more cops down there in Lower Manhattan yesterday than there were any supporters of Donald Trump or counter protesters. There were more cops and media. I don't know. I'd sure like to know, though, how long it's going to take for this judge to attempt to rein the clown in. Incredible. I'm also aware that, you've got to figure that most Americans are sick and tired of this show. It's lost its, this again. It's like, reruns. And, but the hardcore base is so hardcore and so much essential part of the Republican base that Trump still sucks all the air out of the room. Asa Hutchinson can think he can run. Fine, go ahead. Even Ron DeSantis doesn't have a clear lane because of Trump taking up all the oxygen. It's fascinating and actually gratifying in many respects to see that the Republicans cynical decisions of going with Trump and his base has taken them to a place where they can't win. They can't win a national election. I don't think they can win. The election result in Wisconsin yesterday again suggests that the Republicans have made a huge miscalculation. As you know, that contest in Wisconsin last night that was for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court was considered by a lot of opinion writers to be the most consequential election of the year. And I won't go back into why, but the fact is that because the Democrat won that race, and won by a mile, 11 points over the Republican who was a Trump acolyte. And the major issue was what? Abortion. You know, be careful for what you wish. This is what Republicans wanted forever, Roe v. Wade, to be eviscerated. They got their wish, and they are losing elections because of it. Turns out the people don't like having rights taken away from them. Even the people in red states or purple states don't like their rights being taken away from them. And so you have this strange, what the Republicans did in Wisconsin was they captured the government by devious means, extreme gerrymandering, packing the Supreme Court, eviscerating the governor's powers. And so, as I pointed out, even though Joe Biden won Wisconsin, that same election saw the Democrats only get 1/3 of the seats in the state legislature. That's gerrymandering. Gerrymandering that the Republican-led Wisconsin Supreme Court said, looks fine to me. Well, with this win yesterday, that could be the beginning of the reclamation of actual democracy in Wisconsin. And it's a pushback to the Republican Party and the right wing that is out of step with what people want. It's as if the Republicans have a death wish. It's as if, well, we know they kill their constituents. That we've talked about. But the fact that they are lemmings following this man and his thugs to their demise. Extraordinary. But it's troubling to see the media get so comfortably right back in. Who in the Atlantic, Adam Serwer, who writes for them, said this, He called it an unself-conscious return to the pre-2016 era when networks just put Trump on TV all day and watch their Nielsen ratings soar. He's good for the news business. The news, he says, is also good for the Trump business. If the blanket cable news coverage is any indication, both sides, media and Trump, both sides of this superficially antagonistic but mutually beneficial relationship are eager to see the Trump show back on the air. The only ameliorating thing he adds is that there is no guarantee, though, that the audience will like it as much as they did the last time. We'll see. But we now know media, with the exception of MSNBC, which I said lost my eyeballs last night. I thought, good for them. And then I turned to CNN. Actually, no, I turned to Fox. Unbelievable. Gigi writes, I watched enough coverage to see him go into the courthouse, then the court. Did you see the big deal they made about him as we breathlessly waited for him to come into our purview again? And then they noted, everything had to be noted. No one opened the door for him. He had to push the door open himself. Which is, I guess, something he hasn't had to do in God knows how long. Doors are opened. He just sails through. Presidents don't open doors. My God. Gigi writes, okay, so I watched and listened to some of that coverage of the actual charges, and then I watched a little MSNBC in the late evening, but there was no way I could stomach watching him speak. I just had to. Because I wanted to see if he would be chastened. How silly of me, huh? Chastened by the judge's admonition. And the fact that he was not, in fact, went right after the judge's daughter makes me wonder how this is going to play out. Gigi writes, I was glad that MSNBC would not cover his remarks live and glad that NPR gave their reasons for not giving his live remarks airtime as well. On the other hand, it is outrageous that there is so much airtime given to him. But it is history making. That's true, too. Now, they had a good excuse yesterday. There's no doubt about that. Unprecedented. It is history making, and he was president, Gigi writes. If there is one more hand, he should have never been president. So there you go. I agree. The judge has to issue a gag order. He's got oh God. We'll see. He has thrown down, he has challenged, that was a challenge to the judge and the judicial system last night. It was stunning. And of course, it was so much of what he said was a pack of lies. Grifter. He was trying to raise money. You know, they were selling T-shirts. Did you see they had T-shirts? Of course. I mean, other people are making money too. If it's some little guy figuring out a way to cash in, it's okay by me. But the Trump people actually had T-shirts made with a supposed mugshot of him. And as you know, there was no mugshot taken. The reason being the fingerprints are the thing that the system works with. The mugshot is taken so that a defendant, if need be, can be identified. Everybody knows what this jerk looks like. So the fact that he was not did not have to hold that little card and look into the camera and then do a profile, it did keep him from that particular humiliation. But his people pretended they had a mugshot, put it out there on a T-shirt, and on the information, Donald J. Trump, blah, 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 guess what they said his height was? 6'5". Even they never miss an opportunity to exaggerate and lie. Biggest crowd ever. I'm 6'5". He's a tall man, but he ain't 6'5". God. Sorry. Also, the progressive candidate won in the Chicago mayor's race, not the pro-police guy. So, I don't know. The polls, our people are going to the polls. And if we keep this up, this engagement, I tweeted out a picture this morning that was taken at a university campus in Wisconsin yesterday. The University of Wisconsin, I think it was the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, which is a small western Wisconsin city. And it was a picture of students. So these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds waiting in line to vote in this judicial election yesterday. And Wisconsin, because Republicans know they can't win if elections are easily, if the voters can easily cast their ballots. It's some of the most onerous hoops to jump through to vote there. And that's why I suppose things bogged down. There are lines. You have to wait and wait and wait. And someone just walked with their phone down the line of students waiting to vote. And it was mind-boggling. You kept thinking, okay, well, that's got to be it. You were snaking around corners and through corridors and outdoors and blah, blah, blah. And it kept going and going and going and going. And those young people have been politicized by the evisceration of Roe v. Wade. And it's those young people who are going to, I think, give us victories at the polls in the future. Incredible. I'm sorry. I think I have a little PTSD today. I think I was traumatized by that. By watching him last night. I think I was. As I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. And so the consequence is this babbling performance today, for which I'm sorry. Oh, by the way, happy Passover. Passover starts today. And I want to acknowledge Ramadan. You don't say happy Ramadan, do you? No. And given the fact that these two very heavy holidays often coincide, and given the fact that I understand that the Israeli army went into the Al-Aqsa Mosque and arrested a bunch of people there, I'm very concerned that this is going to be a particularly difficult holiday for the Muslims and Jews who live there. I've spoken before about my concern about what's going on there. It really is frightening. Bibi Netanyahu is exactly like Donald Trump. Absolutely willing to subvert his country's democracy, his country's legal system, to secure and hold personal power. How do these horrible human beings always seem to rise? God, incredible. Okie doke. What else I got here? I'm moving on. Oh, I one more. I have a quote here that I saw from Marjorie Taylor Greene. I just have to pass it on. Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history by being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus, yes, she went there. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government. Now, I was stunned, not that she compared Trump to Jesus. I was stunned that she didn't blame Jesus's murder on the Jews, but she blamed it on her intent was to blame government, the deep state of the Roman government at the time. So she let her usual anti-Semitism, held it in abeyance so that she could blast government. Christ. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really struggling today, and I don't know why. Oh, I learned a new word. You know how much I love words. Let me find this here. I mean, it's rare for me to bump into a word that I literally have never seen before. And at first I thought, oh, they're making this up. But then I looked it up. It is a word, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it. This was in a piece by Michelle Goldberg in the New York Times, and it was about yesterday. And it's titled, by the way, Trump's Anticlimactic Arraignment. But she talks about the scene out there, and talks about some of the characters that were there. She said, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who she couldn't hear because the counter demonstrators were louder and people were blowing whistles, and then they were banging on her car door, and then she took off. So she didn't get to be heard. And Goldberg's wandering around through the crowd, as I said, mostly made up of people like her, journalists and cops. And she comes upon a guy. Actually, I saw one of these guys holding a sign outside a Trump Tower that said, I think it said, "Blacks for Trump." And I thought, oh man, all right, pathetic, whatever. And she bumped into the guy who actually was the founder of that group. His name is Maurice Simonet. And this is a guy who, he's sort of entrepreneurial. He also likes attention because he used to be a member of a black supremacist cult that had engaged in violence, and then he sort of remade himself into a Trumpster and created the Blacks for Trump. And he called his group Blacks for Trump a group hustle, a groupuscule, a groupuscule, a groupuscule. That I don't know how it's pronounced, but it starts with group with an uscule after it. Group, like a popsicle, only it's a groupsicle. Have you ever heard of that word? The fucking squirrel is on the bird feeder. Okay. I never heard it, and it turns out it's what you think it is. It's a whatever. What was the definition? It's a group, an activist group, a political or religious splinter group, a groupuscule, a group. I don't know how to pronounce it. And I got a feeling I'm not going to remember it. Okay. I think I've got. I'm sorry. So, I do have an obit. Margo Strom. She also founded a groupsicle called Facing History and Ourselves. And it was because she was a teacher, 7th, 8th grade teacher. And she ended up going to some workshop on the Holocaust and was freaked because she felt she had known about the Holocaust, and she realized she didn't know anything much. She knew, 6 million Jews, gas chambers, Auschwitz. She really didn't know. And she thought, this is not right. We need to know about the worst things. And so she came up with this thing called Facing History, which helps teachers teach about Jim Crow. Teach about the things that, for instance, are all going to be considered things you cannot teach in red states. The things that don't make people or governments look good. The ugliness. South African apartheid. George Floyd killing. Armenian genocide. All of it. And she realized as a teacher and as somebody who had gone through the system here, public schools, that these unpleasant topics were avoided. And she felt so strongly about it that she really organized. I mean, she says, good education has to talk about racism, has to talk about prejudice. And listen to this. This is in 1978 that she started this. And boy, did she get pushback. In 78, when she tried to organize this, a cabinet it got all the way up to the national government, the executive branch, and the Department of Education at the time. Because she sought grants to help get this curriculum into schools. And she approached the Department of Education. And boy, let me tell you, not only didn't she get any grants, one of the members of the panel that reviewed the grants labeled her curriculum leftist, anti-war, and offensive to fundamentalists. The person also went on to say that she did not represent the views of the Nazi Party or the Ku Klux Klan. This was at the Department of Education of the United States in 1978. Who was the president? Yeah. Wasn't a Democrat. This is the kind of people you get when you elect Republicans. This was Ronald Reagan's Department of Education. Sent her packing. It didn't stop her. And this was something she pursued throughout her life. She died of cancer this week at the age of 81. And she lived to see this incredible push going on the right to sanitize, whitewash our history in public school education. So the very thing she had seen a need for in 1978 is needed every bit as much, if not more. She trusted young people. She respected them and respected their ability to handle difficult information. Another little factoid here in her obit is that she was born in Chicago, but her parents moved to Memphis when she was 5. And so she grew up in the South. And she understood prejudice because she was a Jew. And the one fact that sort of jumped out at me from the obit was when she was in high school in Memphis, Tennessee. Only one Jewish girl a year was allowed on the cheerleading squad. It's not, I'm sure they didn't let a black, no, it was probably segregated school, so there wasn't a point. There's no problem with it. We're going to have a black cheerleader. But when it came to the Jews, you had a quota. Only one Jew on the cheerleading squad. But Republicans think that kind of thing should not, we're supposed to bury that. Oh, Art, you're right. 78 was Carter. Wait a minute. Did I get that right then? Wait a minute. No, I got it wrong. No. Okay, wait. She started, wait. Okay, thank you. God. She started this in 78. It was 10 years later that she was trying to get grants. It was in 86 to 88. She was, so I got the date wrong. 86 to 88 that she was trying to get grants to further spread her facing history curriculum. And that's where, it was the Reagan Education Department that said, well, what about the Nazis? Are you giving their side? Jeez. Thank you, Art. God. I told you, I didn't sleep, okay? But there you go. I'm going to do some cleanup here, which I usually do on. Why don't I see this? I've lost a lot of stuff on my email, and I don't know where it went. Do you remember us talking a little bit about patriotism, or did we not? Patriotism and how fewer Americans, it was like 20-some% of Democrats say they feel patriotic, and obviously more Republicans. But the thing that blew me away was there was never a definition given to patriotism. What is it? What is patriotism? Love of country? You can love the idea of the country, some of what the country strives to do, but you don't have to like a whole bunch of it. This idea that patriotism is my country, right and wrong. USA, USA. That kind of Neanderthal in your face. That's how way too many Americans see patriotism. I fly the flag. Whoop-de-doo. Patriotism isn't flying a flag. To me, patriotism is knowing your country's history, bad and good, being willing to acknowledge both, trying to be a good citizen, voting. You can't be patriotic and not vote. It's so much more than the sort of like superficial bull that I think totally screws up any poll that says, do you consider yourself patriotic? Is the NFL patriotic because fighter jets fly in formation after the Star-Spangled Banner gets sung at their football games? Is the NFL patriotic because they blacklisted Colin Kaepernick? I guess they are, to some. So, but I don't have the piece here that gave me some information. I didn't know where the hell it went. I also saw something. This is a few days ago that surprised me, because it actually said this guy I loathe, Elon Musk, had signed onto a letter that had been written by a lot of tech business leaders and academics, including the guys at Google and Microsoft. And the letter, I'm not sure who the hell they sent it to, or if they just sent it out to sound an alarm. But he signed the letter that said, slow down on these artificial intelligence systems, which I find stunning. That Elon Musk, who believes in barreling ahead no matter what, wherever his crazed brain takes him, is feeling squeamish about artificial intelligence, along with a lot of the other techies. The letter said, it's signed by over 1,000 members of the business, academic, and tech worlds. The letter said, in part, it asked a lot of questions because we don't have answers, but they said that the questions need to be asked and not poo-pooed and not waved away. And one of the questions is, should we automate away all the jobs, including the ones that people find fulfilling? That's a good question, isn't it? I'm stunned Elon Musk signed off on that. Should we develop non-human minds that might eventually outnumber, outsmart, and replace us? That's a good question. And the letter that these guys signed off on said that these powerful A1 systems that are now just being, thrown out there should be developed only after we are confident that their effects will be positive and their risks manageable. Well, but you see, it's fascinating to me that someone like Musk signed on to this, because these are all questions that do need to be asked. But they're not being asked. These things just keep coming at us. There's no one in a position to say, stop it. Stop it. You're playing with fire. You're playing with perhaps the extinction of the human race. Could we pause? The letter was sponsored by the Future of Life Institute. Oh my God. The group's donors include Musk, the founder of Skype, the creator of the cryptocurrency, Vitalik Buterin, So these are guys who, excuse me, are, thinking outside the box, and they're concerned. They're concerned. And the fact that they're concerned obviously gets my attention. People who deal with the ethics of artificial intelligence have said there are more immediate problems that this stuff has already created. Like what's being created is being created mostly by men, and it is infusing sexist and racist biases into most of these products. I read a piece the other day, it's just unbelievable. Some black guy in a car is pulled over and ends up in jail, and he's told there's warrants out for his arrest in Louisiana. And he said, I've never been to Louisiana. It didn't matter. That guy spent a week in jail because the cops in Louisiana had used AI technology, facial recognition technology, and pulled him out of nowhere and said he had stolen things, robbed this, that, and the other thing. And it took 5 days for them to say, oh, the machine made a mistake. And these machines consistently make mistakes identifying black people. Anyway, back to this letter. It calls for a 6-month pause on building any new AI, anything more powerful than what's already out there. But you can't stop these people. And the letter actually, these guys are so scared of their own that they're calling on governments around the world to enforce a moratorium on AI to make it illegal until things are certain, more certain. There's no proposals that have gone anywhere here in the United States like that. And the European Union has a proposal, but it has not been adopted into law. But I just wanted to point out that I find that very interesting, that the very people who really understand this stuff are saying, stop us. That's what they're saying. Stop us. Will some government stand up and say you can't do this until you maybe have more of a handle on it? Amazing, huh? Wow. Even Mr. Know-It-All, Elon Musk, signed off. Okay. Well, I think that's it for me. And I'm not going to watch any cable till I'm going back to my cable TV blackout. Jeez. It's why I watched 8 hours of cable television yesterday, and look what it does to me. It makes me incoherent, practically. Okay? I'll see you guys tomorrow, I hope. Watch out for these winds. More winds! God, we're so fucked.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.